Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the September 25th, 2019 School Committee meeting. In keeping with the school committee's vote, we will now recite the Pledge of Allegiance before discussing the topics as listed on the agenda. Anyone in attendance who does not wish to participate in reciting the pledge should feel free to refrain from doing so. Participation in saying the pledge will always be voluntary. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any folks in the audience who wish to make a citizen's comment? Seeing none, we will move on. School committee chair updates. Okay, just a reminder for everybody to please check your nrsd.net email once a day, at least. I mean, I'm checking it all day, but that's me. But please check because things come in fast and sometimes we need you to get back to us about things. So just a reminder there. There will be no school committee meeting on November 6th. Most of us will be at the MASS conference, and right now we're not scheduling a makeup. Looking at the calendar, November in and of itself looks pretty busy. So, but as we get into budget season, if we need to schedule an extra meeting, we will do so by consensus. Let me see what else. Oh, on December 4th, starting at 4:30, we will have a school committee legal issues workshop with our attorney, Mike Maccaro. Joseph and Mary, you were going to be meeting to discuss the school committee meeting room. Have you met already?
We have not.
No. Okay, good. No. Because if you could invite me to your first meeting, that would be great.
Oh,
That'd be great.
We'd love to have you.
I'll bring refreshments. Okay.
Okay.
And just a reminder, agendas for subcommittee meetings must be posted at least 48 hours in advance. Please keep your minutes up to date. Once approved, send them to Alita and she will post them. And I gave out a minutes template at the workshop in June. If you want another copy of that, I'm happy to send it to you. That's all I have. Any questions for me?
I have a quick question. That
Yes.
template is great.
Yes?
Do you have it that you can send it to us electronically?
Absolutely.
Because that would make, then we could just.
Oh, sure. No, I thought I had, but I will, Mary.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. All right, our student representative, Ibby, has a volleyball game tonight.
She does, yeah.
Which sounds a lot more fun than being at school committee, so good for her. So we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Great, thanks. Before we start, I'm going to ask Joel to come forward here, and we have somebody new that we want to present to our school committee tonight. So, oh, we have no internet. Oh my goodness. We may not have any more information up here. We'll have to wait and see. So, Joel, our apologies for that.
No.
Oh, she got it. She got it back.
No.
So Joel, we'd like you to just take a minute here and introduce us to somebody special who's just joined our team.
Indeed, yeah, thank you for having us. It's my pleasure to introduce to you our new assistant principal, Mr. Mark Levine. Mr. Levine has had a variety of roles in public education. He has done it all, and we are thrilled that he is now doing it with us at Florence Source.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to meet you all.
So I think, I just want to say welcome, Mark. Again, I know that we've already said that to you several times here, and tonight we say this in public. Welcome. We're just thrilled to have you as a team member. We appreciate what you bring to us. I know that you've got some interesting background in terms of you have chef skills that you've got.
Yeah.
So maybe talk to us a little bit about your background and where you came from, maybe the school districts that you've been in, just some general background information.
Yeah, that's true. I was the kid in school who didn't want to be there. I wanted to cook. I've cooked since I was about 6 or 7. Family story. I got for 8th grade when I was 8 years old for Christmas. I got an Easy Bake Oven. My sister got a baseball bat and a glove. So we were changing things around. About when I was in my 20s, I started working my way up to as a chef. and I was working at a that was doing really well, but was getting bored, and so I made a deal with the owner that I could go back to school full-time and still do my 60 hours a week. And so, yeah, I was working, I would drive to Boston, to UMass Boston, Monday through Thursday nights, and go to school and work the rest of the time, and had a daughter at the same time, but got my degree in English and found out that pre-ed reform, if I took 2 classes in student taught, I could teach. And I said, oh, okay. Fast forward a few years, I was working 90 hours a week, 9 in the morning till midnight, 6 days a week. Didn't see my wife and my daughter, and my wife said, why don't you see if there's any teaching jobs? And like the smart husband I am, I listened to her and found a place in Central Mass, a private school that was looking for a half-time English teacher, half-time culinary arts teacher.
Wow.
And so I listened to the universe, and I've been teaching since. I was cooking for a few years because I took a cut and pay. I started off at Eagle Hill School, which was a private school for kids with learning disabilities and behavioral issues. From there I went to Leominster, taught in Leominster for 4 years, and loved Leominster, had a lot of fun there, but my hometown and where I lived, Littleton, was looking for a middle school teacher for English. And I applied and started working there, and worked there for 13 years. I was the department chair, the team leader, the union president. I was an alumni, a parent, so I did just about everything there. Then I left Littleton to follow my wife to Baltimore. She got a job at Johns Hopkins University. And so I went down there with her after selling our house, and took a job at a charter school down there. And I was their 4th English teacher, and it was October. And so the kids were like itching to get a 5th one.
Yeah.
But they didn't, and I stuck it out there. But I missed home and missed my family, and my wife's parents and my parents were getting on, so I came back here and worked as an assistant principal in Needham. And I liked that, but it wasn't fulfilling me the way I wanted to, so I left there, and for 2 years taught for the Department of Youth Services in Worcester, teaching literally in a school in a prison for kids. Working with some of the most troubled students that we have in the Commonwealth, and loved every minute of it. But the way things are right now with DYS, they're cutting programs, and so I decided to look and get back into administration, and I was fortunate enough to land this position, and love every minute of it. And, you know, the days fly by, and the kids are fantastic. I was told early on, if you're having a difficult day, go to the kindergarten, and they were right. And I tell you, it makes my day when, you know, I see these kids now, and they come up to me, "Hi, Mr. Maveen," and the nurse tried to correct them, and I was like, no, it's perfectly fine. It's just, it's a really, you know, wonderful place. Everyone, when people ask me what it's like there, I say, it's kind of weird. Everybody smiles all the time. You know, the kids, they say thank you when they're leaving a class. They stop in the hallway to say hello and, you know, ask my name. They work me into the classroom lessons that I'm involved with. Today they worked me into the Spanish lesson. It's a really fun place to work and to be. I feel blessed.
Thank you, Mark. And you know, it's interesting because I had said to you too, Mark came in and spent some time with me maybe 2 weeks ago or whatever, just after school started. And I asked him at the very end, I said, what do you notice the most? And this is exactly what he said. Everybody's always smiling. He says, everybody's always happy. And it's like, yep, that's who we are. So anyway, we love having you. I'm so glad that you came tonight. Thank you so much for joining us so that our school committee could meet you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's a pleasure meeting you.
Joel, as always, thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks again, Mark. So from there, I'll go into my superintendent's report, and Todd and I'll share off a couple of different things. Facilities, I'm going to do a bit of a facilities update because we've got so much stuff going on with facilities and a number of different areas. So if you've got questions, feel free to ask me. The leach field is up first. The leach field, for all intents and purposes, is now finished. It's all done. It's up. It's fully functional now. We had a little glitch yesterday, and it was like, we all took that deep in breath, and oh my gosh, no, please don't let anything go wrong. But it was a little mechanical error, and it was fine right after that. So it's going very, very well. So very happy with that. That was a great project. Came in exactly at the dollars that we thought it was gonna come in on. It was a very smooth project. Mass DEP gave its final approval on the 19th, so we're good with Mass DEP. And you remember that we were on the naughty list because of that, whatever the list is that we shouldn't have been on. So we're off that list right now, so we're thrilled. The oil tank, the preparations are being wrapped up right now in anticipation of the new oil tank coming on stream here. We don't have a confirmed date for its arrival, but they're doing all the electrical, all the mechanical right now, so basically when it comes in, it'll just go right into place. If it doesn't come in a timely manner, then we've got preparations made to bring in temporary oil tanks so that we can keep the high school warm throughout. If the timing says, this is Rob's notes to report out tonight, the timing works closely. The tank is being made and would be ready for the second or third week of October. Once the concrete is poured, the contractor can start then pressuring them to get the actual date. So probably by next time we're together, I should have a very specific timeline on that too. The next thing is with regards to construction at the corner of Wattaquatic and Route 117. We were initially told that to expect the construction to start on this last Monday. It didn't happen at the same level that we thought, but I was speaking with Don Lowe today, and I know that Rob Frieswick has been in touch with Joe Lynch. Again, the town has been outstanding to work with. They're looking at it starting to really amp up tomorrow, so we'll be monitoring the buses for the next, because this will affect the entire district. It's not just like Bolton, it's gonna affect all of that travel on 117 for us, right? So your special education vans, your all the travel that we do, all the food runs that we're doing now because Stowe doesn't have water, because we're cooking off-site and bringing it, all of that stuff that's ongoing. So there's a lot for us to consider. Our grounds crews that travel, all of our sports teams, the middle school, intramurals, all of that kind of thing. So there's a lot for us to consider. So right now, I think we just need to be really, really patient. This is going to be, at the end, this is going to be a really good thing for Bolton. Like really, I mean, we just have to always look at the end product, right? And we're going to have the extra turning lanes in there, and the traffic will flow easier. So we just need to get through the next couple of months with this. So, but we're up to the challenge.
So is what they're doing widening the road?
Yeah, they're going to like you'll see them probably tomorrow starting to hammer out all the curbs, and they're going to kind of rip out all of that and kind of widen it so that there's a turning lane like from here going west, turning lane onto Wattaquatic, and I think that there's going to be an absolute turning lane, dedicated turning lane from Wattaquatic onto 117.
Okay.
So it's kind of a major thing in the whole
Are they
intersection
gonna
area
put
there.
a traffic light, are they gonna keep?
That's, I think that's phase 2. There's a phase 1 and then there's a phase 2 in the early spring, and I think that they're looking at some type of traffic light going in at that point in time.
So is there any kind of an accommodation made for school buses in terms of maybe they take their coffee break during the time when?
We tried that.
Yeah.
I mean, we can giggle because you're saying that, but part of me is giggling because I think, yeah, that's exactly what we have, 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So for example, we had said, what time do you really have to start? But again, and we have to keep this in mind too, and because we work with unions, and no offense to unions, but because we work with unions, we understand the union time starts at a certain time, ends at a certain time, breaks at a certain time. Not exactly like our union, but I mean, we understand and respect that. So the bottom line is, we said, well, when will they start work? Well, they're scheduled to start at 7. And we said, well, might they have a meeting, maybe from 7 to 7:15? Well, they might. Oh, okay, well, that would be really good, because then at least if they start at 7:15, like after the meeting, then our high school is settled, right? And so at least one big building of 1,000 kids and 100 and some staff is all settled, and then that just leaves the 3 communities, the middle and elementary schools. So I think we've talked about it as an administrative team here. I think we're all kind of monitoring it, and generally our principals are calling us in the morning saying, okay, so far, yeah, we're not seeing any change. Next week I expect that we're going to see some major changes. So we decided the other day as a team that we'll sit and watch what happens over the course of the next couple of days, and then we'll do a regroup and decide what this is going to look like. I mean, we've done all kinds of different things, to your point, but in terms of being innovative. How many minutes of instruction have we got in each building? Can we afford to change the times? Can we not? Do we change the bus times? Do we not? Do we change routes? Do we? So we're looking at just about anything and everything here. And I would give a full kudos to our bus company too for working so closely with us on this. So we're just going to be flexible in the next week and see what happens, and then we'll make some decisions probably later next week.
Leah?
Should the kids anticipate the buses going in a different direction? I know that my child was told that the buses were likely gonna take different roads. Is that something that,
I'm not sure who told him that.
it was a bus driver?
Hmm.
So I just wonder if that's not gonna happen, so be it, but should the kids be alerted that, if you see the bus going on a different direction, taking a different road, not to worry?
Well, first of all, that's the first I've heard of that at all from anyone, so I'm not sure where that would have come from at all, other
Okay.
than maybe a bus driver saying, well, I don't know, maybe they'll change the roads or something I can see that kind of conversation happening,
Maybe,
but
yeah.
that specific conversation has not happened at with the lead bus transportation and executive
Okay.
director and any of our offices.
So you
no.
think they're, at this point in time, they're gonna try to stay on the same courses?
That's exactly right.
And then, is there a way for parents, I don't want you guys to be inundated or the bus company be inundated with worried parents if buses are delayed. Like, how are parents gonna be alerted if buses are running behind or?
Well, we don't even know yet, because we don't even know if they're going to be. And again, I give all kudos to our town of Bolton, because they're gonna have police detail out there for the whole time.
Mhm.
And their thing to us right now is we're gonna try to keep you as close to on schedule as we can possibly keep you.
Mhm.
So when we sent out that memo last week, it was just to kind of say, okay, just heads up, this may happen, it might not, but we're thinking it probably will. And I think, we may find, for example, that maybe one or two buses will be affected where others won't. And just like I'm saying, we don't think the high school will be affected. I'm not as worried about the high school students leaving the high school, but I don't know if they're gonna get home at the same point in time, and I don't know how the delays are gonna look there for the second run. It's the second runs I'm worried about, right? It's not the first runs that they're doing, because they're picking up at the right times for the first runs. It's the second run when they go to deliver or pick up at the second run. So, and we won't know that until we see it actually play itself out. So, we literally bus about 3,000 children, right? So, and for us in these couple of weeks, or the next couple of days, to say, okay, this person, I'm not sure what that could even begin to look like, which is why we basically sent out the message, just be flexible here, watching what's happening here, because there's no way we could let 3,000 kids know exactly where they were gonna be.
Other questions about, they anticipate 2 months?
There was no cutoff time. There was no final time.
Okay, they
I
didn't
think
have an estimate.
They have no estimate. No, basically, it's we're gonna work until we can't work anymore.
Okay.
And then, so honestly, they're thinking around mid-December. And then as soon as the snow is gone, then they'll start up again. So that's really how they've left it with us. And again, I think the end product is worth it. We're okay with this. So we just have to all be flexible here, all of us, because it's a lot of parents and it's a lot of children that we move, and that's not even the staff that we're moving about in the district, on a regular basis. So for us, this is a huge deal right now, so just hang tight with us here. So, any other questions? No?
Thank
Okay.
you.
No, I'm still not
I
finished.
no, I think it's that. Now you may go on.
I still have a little list here. This is with regards to the water and still water, and kind of give you an update here. And I've actually got notes right from Rob that I'm gonna kind of read to you. And the key to take away, this is from my notes, but then I'm gonna read Rob's notes. So we've got finalized engineering plans into Mass DEP right now that we're hoping that they will approve. We think that they probably will, because they've been part of us, working with us, and part of the finding the fix all the way along. So we're not thinking we'll have an issue there. We might have some tweaks, but shouldn't be a major issue on that. I'll just mention here what he's got. He says, we're working with Neo Geoscience on engineering for full building filtration to remove the PFAS contaminants. You'll recall that I said that at one point in time, we thought that, well, and it still holds true, that what we have to do for one school is going to be marginally different than the other school, right? And I think that Hale will probably be the easier school for the fix as such, and it's just because of how the plumbing is at Center School. That's all it is. It's nothing other than that. But what they are looking at doing is fixing both, so that both are up full scale again. So at first we thought we might have to do it piecemeal, but it doesn't look like that's how it's going to play out. Again, I'll be reading right from Rob's notes. We will be installing 4 filtration vessels that are filled with granular activated carbon. The vessels will be sized based off of the flow of the water that the schools use each day. The first vessel will do the bulk of the work, and the other 3 vessels will clean up any of the contaminants that got by the first one. The system is designed to get readings to a non-detect on the finished water that is distributed in the building. So that's what we're aiming for. I don't know whether we'll get there, but that's what we're aiming for, is a non-detect. At Hale, we'll have to make some modifications to the outer building where the well and water storage tank and the chemical feed to make it appropriate, because right now it isn't. So we're going to have some work to do in that area as well. Center School will require a little bit more engineering due to, exactly as I said, to the chemical feed and the water softening system. The NE Geoscience submitted the application for the approval of the engineering to Mass DEP last week. So we'll know shortly where we're at with that. Rob has also been staying in contact with the Stowe leadership so that they know what's going on as well. We have no idea of cost right now, so I'm just putting that out there right now. We have no idea what this is going to cost. So as soon as we know, we'll let them know. Next item is mosquitoes. Let's talk mosquitoes for a minute. The tree lines of all NRSD buildings now have been treated for the second and final installment in an effort to curb the mosquito population on our campuses. The regional aerial spraying, which we had nothing to do with, has also been completed, as well as our own vendor that came in to do it. We anticipate that with the nice weather, we'll probably be continuing to reschedule our athletic activities through the month of October. We thought it might only be September, but now it's looking like it's going to go into October as well. So for those parents who are heavily involved in our sports seasons, know that you can expect to see some changes for rescheduling again next month. So that's just a general facilities update. Any questions on that? No? Okay, great. The next item is the building, the potential building project with the high school. Discussion is expected to begin this fall and move forward into the new school year, linked to the current SOI, the statement of interest that we have with MSBA. This is being proactive. I will talk a lot more about this here probably at the next meeting, and then again at the November meeting. And so this is kind of almost a teaser, if you will, to say this is coming. So just to let you know, we're taking a look at starting early discussions about what the needs probably would be from the primarily from the staff perspective of a new or substantially changed high school. And so we've got somebody who will be coming in, and we've had our first meeting to start to align things. We'll be having a follow-up meeting next week to start to strategize and see what those additional meetings will look like and how this is going to play itself out. Very exciting, a little daunting, but very, very exciting. And we're doing this to be proactive. MSBA is not forcing us to do this. We are doing this of our own volition right now. But one of the things that struck me this summer was, and I'll speak to that again next month, is sitting in an MSBA session where two schools that had just come out of finishing their project said, we felt that it was so rushed that we didn't have the time to really think about it once we got queued up. And so I thought, we're not queued up yet. Maybe we take some time right now to seriously be thoughtful, planful, strategize. What should that look like for the next decade? And so we've got some really good ideas, and I really appreciated our first kickoff meeting the other day. I thought it went very, very well. So you'll hear more about that here in the next couple of upcoming meetings. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. McGuire.
Okay. Moving on, touching base on social emotional learning, on Monday, the 23rd of September, our teams from each of our elementary and our middle schools convene with the Student Systemic Support Academy, or also known as S3 Academy, the large grant that we received last year and continue to participate in now into beginning year 2 of our work with the implementation of support plans at each of our schools in collaboration with Boston College, as well as the Rennie Center. Members from each of our schools worked on developing implementation plans at each school. They also worked with the newly developed standards in conjunction with each plan. These standards allow each team to make sure they are addressing the major needs of social emotional learning in their schools, and to also begin assessing our progress there. The work continues to evolve. Moving forward, the district this year will be working with an individual consultant who is there on Monday, who will visit the district and work with us on each of the social emotional learning plans that are in place.
And I think we want to make sure that we don't lose sight of the fact that you and Mr. Grady presented the other
We
day.
did. Kyle gets us extra participation points at these conferences because he often volunteers us to
Volunteers.
participate. So we were the model yet again. So we were able to get up and actually use some of the programming that we have been developing and use it against the standards that they have been using with a room full of about, I don't know, 500 to 600 people in the room. So that was great.
Thanks for doing that,
We got
Mr.
some
Grady.
we got some great feedback. And the nice thing is that they have now developed these standards by which we can measure our implementation plans against, and they have also developed rubrics by which we can then assess our work. So as we talk about data and providing data points for this work, they are aware that, you know, social emotional learning can be a little bit more qualitative and are working very hard to help develop assessment tools for us that we can bring forward to districts so that we know where we are at in the process.
Super,
So
that's
that was a
awesome.
great advancement that we have here in the second year with this program.
Right.
So more on that as it continues to evolve. Last Wednesday, on the 18th, the district began its professional development work for the year at each school. As it was a site-based day, as we will have 2 site-based days, September and October, each school had a strong focus in addressing the year's goals in conjunction with our district and our school improvement plans. From unpacking MCAS data to building positive climate within school cultures to an essential support training for our nursing and our guidance staff, the district was well engaged. As part of our outreach and desire for authentic feedback too, all district members completed an exit survey in providing us with feedback not only on the programming at each site, but recognizing that Wednesday was the first Wednesday early release, so we really did some outreach to everybody in terms of how that Wednesday went for people. And we did a deep dive on why it went well, why maybe it didn't go so well, so we'll be able to continually bring you that feedback as that change happened this year. The feedback will be shared with each building principal as well, as it was a site-based day, and unpacked at our district-wide teaching and learning meetings as they occur each month in our teaching and learning offices. And finally, accountability and assessment data is out. Our accountability information has been released, and our MCAS data has been released. The school and district accountability data is now out there. We will be providing specific outcomes and sharing this data with the district in the near future as soon as we comb through it and get a sense of where we are at. Each school is doing that with MCAS data, as well as their own accountability data, as well as the district as a whole. The initial findings show that the district and each school do not require any intervention or assistance this year based on last year's performance. And I will say, in addition, one school in the district has been cited as a school of recognition in all 3 categories, including high achievement, meeting and exceeding targets, and high growth. This is a tremendous accomplishment within the state, and there will be more to come on that accountability and MCAS outcomes at a later meeting.
So the school that is being recognized,
Well,
you can't say, is that embargoed?
it's not embargoed.
Except it was in the patch.
It is not. It wasn't the part. It is the Luther. It is the Luther Burbank Middle School. Our principal, Laura Friend, is here tonight.
Yes.
We will report more out on it at a later meeting when we go
Okay.
through all of it. But the data was good, and that is a huge accomplishment
Huge.
for the district as well as her school. So
Super. Leah,
Can I just ask a clarifying question on MCAS data? Are they at this point assessing growth? This is the second year of 2.0, or
Yeah, this is the second year
so
of
they
it.
still do the growth percentile scores?
yes,
They are still
they
doing
are
it.
still doing it.
Okay.
Yeah,
You
and we
sure?
will have an
But
entire
it's-
presentation on
Yeah.
all of that, a very thorough one for
Okay.
you. But for my report tonight, it's just to say it has been released. It's now officially released to the public,
Mhm.
and it's something we're putting together, and we'll have a.
We generally do it in October, November. We
Yeah.
come in forward and we give a full scale
Okay.
presentation on it. So
And that's about when parents get reports,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. So all is well in the world of teaching and learning.
great. Thank you.
And that's it
Thank
for
you.
us.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you. New business, middle school Washington DC trip approvals. So, are you gonna?
Yeah, let me tee it up first of all. You'll
All right.
recall that last year was the first year that we started to bring all of our trips forward to have a school committee approval if they were overnight. You recall that it was in policy, but we hadn't really been doing it. So we started last year to do it. about mid-year. And so one of the things that we thought about was those trips, such as this one, where everybody does it, it makes sense just to do it one night, bring all the principals forward, they can all talk. It's the exact same trip, quite frankly, different days, different schools, but really, it's pretty much the exact same trip. So with that being said, I'll turn it over to the principals and maybe just give a brief overview from your perspective, and we can discuss it after.
Go ahead, Joel.
Oh, I'm gonna start? Okay. So, as Superintendent Crouchy said, the experiences are essentially the same kinds of things. We'll go and see the monuments and the museums and take in, those living, breathing aspects of what the 8th graders are learning about throughout the year in terms of civics and the federal government and the historical monuments. It's a great experience for the students. Our trips are all this similar in length as well, 4-day trips and buses. And I think you have copies of our requests in front of you as well.
This is an annual trip. They take
It
this
is.
every year, so this is just coming forward. And we thought we would do this now, so, I mean, the trips are, much later in the year, of course, but we thought it would make sense to just kind of get it over with now
Well,
and have
just
the approval.
so we can start the fundraising aspects of it as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, I don't, you don't have a,
I just have a question when it's time.
oh, sure, ask a question.
Okay, so one thing I noticed is that each school is using a different company.
Mm.
And so I wondered, well, maybe why, but also afterwards, if you've used the same company year after year, do principals get together and talk about, the different agencies or companies that you're using?
Yep. Yeah, so.
And compare, contrast, that
Yeah,
kind of
no,
thing.
so, as you know, Florence Sawyer School didn't go for a number of years. It wasn't a trip that we had sort of taken off the table. And when we decided to take the trip up again, because our 7th graders go away to Sargent Center, so building in the Washington DC trip, we all had the same tour company at that time, I think. And then we just looked at the options that were available, at least as far as our school went. And so the 8th grade class advisors work with the principals in terms of the aspects of the trip. We've calibrated before in terms of the dates and included the athletic director in that. And it really doesn't make that much of a difference in terms of scheduling for when we end up going.
I think we both use Suburban.
Yeah, we both use Suburban Tours.
I think the trips are all very similar. They're all very similar in scope. It's a really great culminating trip for the 8th graders. They look forward to it. It's their one last, and it's a significant coming together of the class before they head to the high school. It's really special.
Mike?
So this is more of a policy question, not about the field trip. I think the field trip is obviously a great experience, but I noticed that on all 3 approval forms that there was one or more to be determined chaperones, and I wonder what that means, assuming that if, let's just say for instance that we approve this, what does that mean for those outstanding
Sure.
chaperones?
In our case, with the numbers where they are right now, we don't need more than 7. And I would anticipate that the numbers would go down. So the to be determined would be a placeholder if we were to need an 8th chaperone, which I would obviously bring before you again, if there was any change to it.
Okay.
Go ahead, you have one?
No, but so for instance, I think there's, sorry, Mr. Bates, which one is yours? There's 3 here.
Florence Sawyer.
Florence Sawyer School. It's FSS grade 8.
Oh, there it is. Okay, Caleb Coughlin. Okay, so then the other 2 have multiple to be determines. So I guess my policy question is, if we approve it, then that sort of leaves the door open. Not that I would assume that anything would happen like that, but And in terms of policy, it does leave the door open for chaperones that are either not quarried or fingerprinted or.
No,
No,
absolutely
no,
not.
they
I
was
had-
not. I don't know if you recall last year that there was a lot of discussion
Right.
about adhering to policy with regards to quarry and fingerprinting and knowing who was going before. And I can't remember which field trip or was impacted, but we came very close to not having it.
Right,
To the point where the committee came in
right. I
just to
remember.
approve it. So I think we really hold to the policies.
So does that mean that these folks will be coming back once the,
I think
Yeah,
Todd's gonna
so
speak to that.
given the work we did around field trips last year and really streamlining that process and making sure that every chaperone was quarried and fingerprinted in the 90-day out that we have to get this before school committee, we wanted to get these trips in front of you very, very early, but also knowing there are some adults who either have not committed to being a chaperone yet, so the expectation is that they will come before again to say with these are the chaperones that will be on, but because it is September and these trips won't go until the spring,
that makes sense.
but we want to get them all out to you ahead of time and have them streamlined. You will see on the October 23rd meeting as well, the high school is going to come forward with several global trips so that they are in front of you well in advance of 90 days. And there are just sometimes those glitches, but they will be quarried and fingerprinted, and they will be
Understood.
brought to you beforehand. We just want to streamline it this year.
Yeah, if you take a look, for example, I mean, you know, the Luther Burbank is May, and this is September, you know, like, you know,
Right.
so it's really just, I think it was more about procedural for
Yep.
us, just to make sure that these are getting the approval now, so they can, Joel, so they can go back, do the appropriate fundraising, do whatever they need to do.
Oh, yes.
If you want to add something just for procedural, you can put in the motion with the understanding all chaperones will be quarried and
Contingency.
fingerprinted.
Yeah.
And that would cover you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I had a question just relative to chaperones. Hale says you have 105 students approximately going and 15 chaperones. Luther Burbank has 90 and needs 9 chaperones, and Florence Hoyer has 71 students and 7 chaperones. Why does Hale need so many?
That's just going by the numbers that of parents who have agreed to go in the past. So
Okay.
we've had a little bit more than 10 students per one chaperone. Last year, I think we ended up for a class of 78, we ended up sending 12 total chaperones. And that's just because there were more parents who wanted to go, and knowing that the constellation of the students going on the trip, it was worthwhile having some extra hands.
Okay, no, that's good to know. The other thing is the cost, and I know that you're using different companies. Burbank is $1,000, Florence Sawyer is not to exceed $900, and Hale is $800. Do they get different things, or it's just?
So, when we say not to exceed, we say to our parents, it won't be more than this.
I know
but
what that
the
means,
cost
but
will
I'm
be
just wondering why all
deferred
three are
depending on
different.
how much fundraising that we are able to do.
Yeah, but what accounts for the,
But that's what he's saying, it really just depends on how much the fundraising is and how much they've been able to, that's all it is.
right, but the other two listed an amount, it doesn't say not to exceed, so like,
I
Yeah.
mean, I know there are some differences in the itineraries, so
Okay.
I know that does impact the cost. I also know the location of the hotel
yeah,
does impact the
Okay.
cost, and the size of the class
Okay.
impacts the cost of the trip for each individual student as well.
okay.
It tends to be the larger the class, the less overall cost that for the trip it is.
The closer to
The
the
other,
state of Washington.
the other thing, the way it works is parents have to pay a certain amount to attend the trip, so that also helps reduce the cost.
All right.
So that's another factor in there, which is why we might have more chaperones going, which then could end up having a different cost. I would certainly say that fundraising is a huge component of it, but there are some differences within the trip. You know, Mr. Keaveney really organizes the trip for us. He does all of it. So we're really just getting a company to get us tickets into certain locations that he chooses. They're also getting us the busing and the lodging. And in Mr. Keaveney's particular about what lodging we get, so that we can get into certain areas at certain times of day. So that all of that has a little bit
He
of a
did
different
that before I
effect.
got into teaching, were you
He
aware of
did,
that?
yes, he
Yeah,
did.
maybe you two ought to talk to Kevin Keaveney. He did such a deal.
Can you spare him?
No, it's good to know, and then all the schools do fundraising to offset the cost? Okay.
The only other thing I'd like to say is that as much as these trips, you know, are sort of a bookend for students and a time to come together, there's clearly an academic component, but it's also just fun.
Sure.
I mean, and it's just remembering that it's a fun trip for them to go on. It's a memory-making time. We try to tie it to academics throughout the school year, but there's an acknowledgement too that it's just a good time for them.
Great. No. Any other questions?
I would add
Yes?
that my son went last year and loved it.
Yeah.
So I can attest to that. It was very important to his development, so thank you.
Good. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I just have one quick question. This
Go
is
ahead,
more out of
Joseph.
curiosity.
Sure.
Does the time period in which the students or the schools go, does that impact the cost as far as hotel and accommodations are concerned?
Probably.
Okay, I just was curious, because it looked like someone when I'm going in mid-April, and I thought, well, that could be a time when there's a lot of students and a lot of families heading down there, and of course, hotels are gonna spike their prices at that point, so. But that is something that might be something that affects the cost, okay.
Yeah, and there's also certain, there's some strategy too. Sometimes you want to make sure that you're going when congressmen are in office. There's been times where we've gone in the past where they're at recess,
Yeah.
so you don't end up really seeing many live things. So it's important that you kind of have to look at a lot of different factors. And then also, in the past, we've run into it being more expensive because there's not many hotels available, in large part because of other conferences
That's
that are
right, yeah.
happening.
Yeah, so that's-
So it's a bit of a moving target.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Do we want to
All
put some
right.
motions?
Yes, let's start with Florence Sawyer. So I move to approve the Florence Sawyer Grade 8 class trip to Washington DC on March 31st, 2020 through April 3rd, 2020 for approximately 71 students and 8 chaperones with the understanding that all chaperones will be quarried and fingerprinted.
I have a second. Leah seconds. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay. So Florence Sawyer gets to go.
Thank you.
All right.
work here is done.
I move to approve the Hale Middle School Grade 8 class trip to Washington DC on April 14th, 2020 through April 17th, 2020 for approximately 105 students and 15 chaperones with the understanding that all chaperones will be quarried and fingerprinted.
Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay. Luther Burbank.
All right. I move to approve the Luther Burbank Middle School Grade 8 class trip to Washington, D.C. on May 26th, 2020 through May 29th, 2020 for approximately 90 students and 9 chaperones with the understanding that chaperones will be quarried and fingerprinted.
Second.
Second.
Leah? Okay, all in favor? Okay, well, thank you very much. And I know it's fun and it's well organized, but it's still taking 8th graders, a lot of them, out of state on a bus. Thank you. God bless you.
You're welcome to join us.
Yes. You know what?
You could fill those TBD slots just right here at this table.
When I was in Concord, I went, and I was in central office, so the kids didn't know me as a teacher or principal or anything. So they gave me my group, and of course they were 8th grade boys, my favorite people. And so I'm giving them, I want them to know that I'm not a pushover. I may be old, but I'm tough, you guys. And I said, I was a middle school teacher and a middle school principal, and a high school principal. And what do you take away from that? And one of them said that you can't keep a job. So I'd be happy to help.
Thank you so much, principals, for coming tonight. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, so next we have old business, district improvement plan, and
I'll tee it up.
You go.
And then, and we're asking a principal friend back to the table and Martina Kenyon to join us this evening. So I'm just going to do a quick tee-up before I turn it over to Dr. McGuire. So this is just basically, again, contextually to remind you that when we first came into, this administration came into the district, we really took a fresh look at the district improvement plan, and we wanted to gear it to something that was truly genuine and authentic for the work that the district really was doing. It forced us, and I say that with affection, it forced us to look ahead, really plan, really set priorities, and then really set a pathway to go after those priorities. So I feel really, really good about where we've landed, and now 3 years later, I'm looking at this plan, and I'm so proud of the work that's been done. I know that, similar to you with the S3 Academy the other day when you were presenting, and it became like an exemplar in the room, this also has become an exemplar across the state. Our process and the actual template that we use, and how we come to find our way through this. This is a lot of work. We involve a lot of people, and I know that Martina, Laura, and Todd will speak about that, because for all intents and purposes, even though our school committee has seen this before, our community hasn't. So this is really our night to say to the community, this is the direction that the school district will be taking this year. I also want to commend our school committee too, because we spent a lot of time on this. We really did. I mean, we had an extra session just to talk about the district improvement plan. And again, for the community, this is something that all school districts do every year, so it's not something that's just specific to Neshoba, but all school districts across the state are expected to do this. And it really is just for us, for this particular district, we see ourselves as a really strong district, a really, really solid, good, high-functioning district. So when we take a look at a district improvement plan, we might look at it through a different lens than another district might. We're looking for the gold. We're looking for that excellence, and so we shoot a little higher, I think, when we talk about our district improvement plans and processes that we've got in place. So with that, I'm going to turn it over. I'm really excited about where we're at. I'm excited about the work that we've got in front of us and how we're looking to accomplish this. We've also laid this out for our teachers, our very first day back. Again, Martina presented then, and the principals have talked about it in their meetings since we've been back. So I think everybody across the district right now kind of knows where we're at. So this is really more about the community tonight. So Dr. McGuire, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. So just in presenting the district improvement plan really to the greater community, I'm just going to quickly go over what the vision and the mission is for the district, as well as you folks also asked for me to include and add kind of the developmental process to this document. You will find that in this document, and another thing that you asked for was a specific definition and how we as a district are defining social emotional learning. So we've done that, and Martina and Laura can speak to that from their work in the trenches at each of the schools, and with obviously specifically with Martina as a curriculum director, and how we organize all of that. So the vision of the Neshoba Regional School District is to engage educators and students, as well as their families and all of our community members, to foster and sustain educational services that really support and enrich and extend the curriculum for all of our students. Use indicators of student growth that show achievement and potential for instructional planning. They maintain and improve the necessary space, materials, and technology necessary for a quality education, and communicate and demonstrate progress towards our goals. I think you'll find that each of the 4 of our goals speak specifically to that vision, whether it's learning environments, whether it's supporting each learner, curriculum, as well as literacy across all disciplines. And the mission statement of our district is to educate all students to their fullest potential in a safe, caring environment, to become critical, creative, reflective thinkers and positive contributors to the global community. Monday at our S3 Academy, that really was our anchoring statement, in which we have really grown our plans, our LCL plans at each of our schools from that mission statement.
Now, Todd, I just wanted to ask a quick question here. I know that you've got this slide on your computer right
Yep.
now, but this is actually right on the first sheet, correct?
This is the front sheet that I'm, right, the vision and the mission.
Yeah, so that's what he's reading from, is your very first sheet
Sure.
right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
And those core values that we really plan these goals around in terms of valuing excellence through achievement and growth for all of our learners, active environments in which their diverse backgrounds, identities, and strengths are respected, digital learning, communication, and collaboration has been new to the district in the last few years. Family and community engagement has been a priority and continues to be. Our work with safety and healthy environments, particularly if you remember last year's district improvement plan, safety and health was a major goal, and the shared responsibility for all of our learners, both student and adult. And so those are the core values associated with the district. If you look on the second page of this, we worked to just create the process by which the district improvement plan is developed. And we went over this in our meeting over the summer, and for your request, asked us to include it in the district improvement plan, which I think we believe is a great idea, so that all community members know how we go about the process. So we review the district vision annually as a teaching and learning department, as an administration, and as a district. We examine those core values to ensure that the school improvement plans coincide with the district's vision in the improvement plan. And specifically, as I mentioned, on the previous slide, when we talk about things like digital learning and we talk about things like communication and community involvement, those have been evolving for us over the last few years. So in our development, we really take a look at those things and how we can continue to grow with them. And then we have a creation of a district team that includes multiple stakeholders from all of our schools. We had principals, we had assistant principals, we had multiple members from central office, we had members from the teaching and learning team. Join us in terms of building this plan from the ground up. And so the process was identifying our needs and our priorities. We identified commonalities across all of those constituencies and all of those stakeholders so that we can identify what we have in common to move forward with. We then develop those outcomes and we create overarching goals that address district needs but also will address school needs as well. Specific actions and benchmarks for each goal are created to ensure measurable growth, and the plan is developed by the team and then presented to the school committee for their feedback and ultimately their approval.
I think the other thing I just want to insert here too is that I feel like we're finally at the stage now, we certainly weren't at the beginning, but we are now where the district improvement plan really helps to inform the school improvement plans and our administrator goals. And so and you'll see that when I bring my goals forward at the next meeting, that they all basically tie into this as well. So I feel like this year we are all tied, finally. I mean, it's taken us years to get here, but I feel really good that we're all tied into this now.
Right, and just to speak to the work at the S3 Academy, for example, on Monday, because there are multiple stakeholders from each district, for example, they take the district leads away from the school building leaders. So Martina and I get taken away and we go work with our district level improvement plans, while then our building principals, our assistant principals are working on their individual school improvement plans, and then we come together. And so we bring that our anchoring district improvement plan, and then the schools are then able to take that and build their school improvement plans, their SEL plans from that. So it's very strategic in the way in which they do it, and they work with us in completing the tasks at hand. So I'm gonna hand it over to Martina and Laura. They're gonna talk like they did the last time about each of the goals. And I'll just draw your attention, after the social, emotional, and academic learning goal, we then defined what that means. And we'll point out that how we define that in the core competencies that we're focused on within the district. So I'll hand it over to you, ladies. Thank you.
Thank you so much again for the opportunity to present this district improvement plan. I also wanted to echo something that Laura said a long time ago, but that builds off of what we just heard, that the district plan definitely drives the school plans, but they also reflect each other, and I think that's because the principals are heavily involved in developing it, so that we really see something that's really cohesive, because it kind of goes both ways, and we're trying to address everybody's needs with this plan, so we're really proud of that collaboration. So our plan is to go through each of the goals with this group, and I just wanted to mention that the district improvement plan is accessible on the district website, so if anybody wants to look at it in any more detail, please feel free. Each of the goals has a number of components. In addition to the goal, we've outlined actions, which are the specific steps to achieve the goal. We've outlined benchmarks, which we consider the measurables or the early indicators of success with the goal. And then we've developed outcomes, which really help us tie each goal back to our stakeholders, our students, our staff, and our community. Really intended to paint a bigger picture and illustrate the why in terms of each goal and why we're doing this. So as we go through it, you'll see that each goal connects to the broader vision for instruction at Neshoba that was just mentioned, to support students to be active participants in their learning by learning collaboratively, doing work that's meaningful, sparks creativity and innovation, and leveraging technology in order to enhance students' learning in all areas. In order to succeed in an environment that encourages students to learn from their mistakes and think flexibly and have an impact on those around them. We know that students need more than academic skills, and as Superintendent Clenchey mentioned, we're really lucky to be kind of looking beyond that because we're striving for that excellence, that gold. So we hope you see that the goals in this DIP represent our next steps in helping students develop their skills academically and beyond. So with that said, the first goal is to intentionally integrate social emotional practices across all settings. And we were very deliberate in calling this bucket goal social, emotional, and academic because we know how critical social and emotional engagement is to students' outcomes in academics as well. We also see the skills in social and emotional domains as critical to students' success outside of school. So we want to make sure that we're doing everything possible to support and foster those skills with our students. Over the past few years, we've done some work within our health curriculum to explicitly incorporate the teaching of social emotional skills. Thanks to the school committee's feedback, and as Dr. McGuire mentioned, we've listed those 5 skills on the next page. And those include self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, social awareness, and relationship skills. So our next step as a district is to ensure that now that students are learning those skills specifically, that they get many opportunities to practice them, further develop them, and further learn them so that they really can transfer those to any area in which they're working. And so our plan is to, this year and next year, work with our staff to offer professional development through staff meetings, which Laura will talk about in a little bit, and other professional development opportunities to develop their own understanding of those social emotional skills, and then be able to be very planful in terms of all the opportunities they'll then integrate for students in a future year to support those skills. And through our S3 work, we're also planning to incorporate the consideration of social emotional data and supports on top of academics within our intervention planning. So did you want to share an example?
Yeah, I just want to say, can I just interject for a minute? School committee members, you're going to hear that CASTLE acronym come up over and over and over again for Mike and Leah as educators, current educators right now. You're probably hearing that a lot. Mira, I don't know if you're in the know about that, but if you aren't, please take extra special note of that acronym because it will come up consistently now throughout the rest of the year.
I just can give a highlight of what it's looking like in the schools in terms of the leadership team aspect of the plan. So at the school level, we are using the knowledge and training that we've gained from Research for Better Teaching. Our leadership team went this summer and we're going again in a couple of weeks, and we experienced a mini institute on SEL, and anything that we take from RBT is awesome. We're also using the learning that Dr. McGuire had described from the S3 Academy, and we're also looking forward to the Excel Academy as well, which is coming up. And so the principals are using that learning to impart knowledge to their staff and their respective buildings. We know this is a 2-year plan, so this year our focus is on increasing awareness and understanding of staff so that their knowledge of SEL is strong. We know that we can't have strong SEL for our students if we don't have strong knowledge and awareness for the staff. So the principals are looking at really supporting staff with increasing their knowledge around those 5 core competencies this year. That's our our collective goal. We're all approaching it a little bit differently, but we're all approaching it consistently and strategically in a very similar fashion. There's a lot of overlap and a lot of communication and collaboration amongst the principals about how we're approaching what we're sharing with staff and what we're expecting staff to do this year in terms of learning. So I can give you a snapshot of what it's looking like at Luther Burbank this year, and I know it looks very similar at the other schools as well. We have earmarked, if you will, our staff meeting time and our available site-based early release time, which we've already been fortunate to really have 1.5 days at the beginning of the school year. We had a site-based day last week. We've used that time, and we've also projected out to use our staff meeting time for the remainder of the year to systematically experience those 5 core competencies with staff. And staff have already been given an agenda for the year of what that's going to look like for the remainder of the year, and they're really excited. So at Burbank, we've already dug into one of the core competencies around self-awareness, and that's included different kinds of activities that we've used with staff around relationship building with students, and they were really energized and excited, and we've already seen application already, even though that wasn't necessarily our intention this year. It's natural for teachers to go ahead and take it back to their classrooms, so that's been exciting. And we're looking forward to the year ahead with the other 4 competencies and then summarizing at the end. And then in addition, we are also engaging in a staff book study, and I know this is happening at the majority of schools in the district, using Onward by Elena Aguilar. It's building emotional resilience for educators. And so that's already underway in our schools. And as well at Luther Burbank, we're also engaging in a parent teacher book study on Middle School Matters by Phyllis Fagel, and we're really excited about that learning with our parents around, for us, SEL at the middle level for parents. We also have advisory programs which further support SEL learning for our students. And this year we've actually gone in and revised our advisory program for 2 of the core competencies, and that's social awareness and relationships. So there's a lot going on at the site-based level in each building. It's really exciting.
Can I just interject something too? This gets back to Dr. McCarthy's comment earlier. It was a question she asked about, do you get together, do you have these kinds of discussions, do you reflect, and one of the, I don't think you know this administrative team that well because you're so new to the committee, but that is how we work. Mm-hmm. And so whether it's like a meeting like today where we had this whole room fills up with all of our administrators, and then after we have separate individual meetings, we always take the time to reflect and compare notes, and so that everybody's pretty much always on the same page. But we also work very hard to respect the autonomy of each of our 3 communities, and so it's okay for them to be a little bit different depending on their staff, depending on their communities. And so that's why, exactly as Principal Friend said, a lot of it's the same, but there are a little bit of differences, but those are purposeful, and we accept that and we respect that. So sorry, thanks.
I have a question.
Leah?
May I? Can we expect that this is also happening at the high school?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. But again, very different, right? Because what you're seeing, right? Like all of this is for the district, right? So what you're seeing here is not labeled for elementary and middle schools. What you're hearing tonight, because Principal Friend is middle school, you're hearing more of that around the table tonight. But no, there's work that's being done right across the entire district in this area. So that's a great question.
And we're particularly excited about the Excel network that we applied to and were accepted to this year because it's a K-12 effort. So there's at least 1 representative from each school, including the high school, which has 2 going, and that's going to really bring us together as a district and furthering SEL work.
And I wanted to just, in terms of closing out this one around how we move forward when it comes to district-wide professional development, and the focus this year very much still continues to be on innovation, but a move towards social emotional learning, Last year we had George Kuros come, and he was all about that innovator's mindset and what is the mindset of being innovative. This year, I think, Elaine, you asked, why Tony Wagner and what is the connection to social emotional learning, but he understands that those skills of motivation, that emotional intelligence pushes kids forward. And, next year as we really move into social emotional learning, we're looking to get somebody in here like Mark Brackett, who is the leader at Yale University, whose book just came out, Permission to Feel, which we're doing a team read on that. So it's been very deliberate to kind of move slowly from that kind of innovator's mindset through Tony Wagner, who will make the connection, and then next year that implementation of social emotional learning with kiddos, with the staff who knows how to do it.
So it's a very thoughtful process that we're taking here. Sorry, Martina?
That's okay. So now moving to the second goal. The second goal is to create for staff and students inclusive learning structures and environments that promote collaboration, empowerment, innovation, and other practices that will support our students to be successful in school and in life. And this again connects back to our instructional vision, where students are given opportunities to prepare for their life in and outside of school by developing skills including collaboration, flexible thinking, and innovation. Because we know those skills are critical and will become more critical to their success in the outside world as well. This goal also connects to last year's second goal, which Dr. McGuire mentioned earlier, was focused heavily on creating safe and supportive learning environments, and we feel that this is the next step for us to build on additional structures that will promote that multi-dimensional learning. Now that we've kind of established this safe foundation, we can look beyond that again. We're going for the excellence. So we want to promote learning that extends beyond the discrete subject areas and allow students to learn across the content areas and skill sets. And in order to do that, we need our spaces and our structures and our schedules to model that and allow for that. So within this goal, we'll be evaluating and redesigning school spaces to foster innovative student learning. As an example, at Luther Burbank, but actually across our middle school libraries have been already within the summer and the last few weeks transformed to flexible learning spaces where teachers can come together, students can come together from multiple classes and really leverage a flexible space to do work that moves beyond the typical classroom. So we're really excited about that. And secondarily, we'll continue exploring the design thinking framework as another framework for identifying problems and identifying solutions to those problems. So we are seeing a lot of promise in that area at the high school and looking for.
I was just going to say, there's a perfect example of the high school, because we're doing work, we did some work with them just going into the summer. Actually, we brought all the department chairs in and had them all trained on the design thinking, and so you'll see more of that start to play out too. And we felt with them that they weren't quite prepared yet to implement, which is exactly what we said. This is why we want this year to focus on staff, because we really want our staff to feel confident and comfortable in the subject matter before we have the expectations of it rolling out to the students. So very purposeful. Sorry.
Exactly. So moving on to the third goal is to grow empowering student learning experiences for students and staff. This again expands the third goal from last year's DIP to help us address the updated history social studies framework. This framework sets forth the expectation that students have foundational skills and resources to become civically engaged and learn about history and social studies from a more diverse set of perspectives than has been encouraged in the past. And within the next 2 years, our first steps in addressing these shifting expectations will be to realign the middle school curriculum because that's really experienced the most drastic changes in this round of updates to the frameworks. And we're also going to look to support students' civic skills and civic mindedness by identifying opportunities across content areas to get students actively engaged in their school, actively engaged in their communities, and make deliberate connections between their social emotional skill development and their academic skill development in this area too. So we're really excited that this is the next extension of our empowerment or student agency focused goal in the district improvement plan. And I'll then move to goal 4, which is did you want to add anything, by the way? I'm sorry.
Great job.
Okay. And then goal 4 is to develop aligned curriculum and instructional practices for literacy across the content areas. And again, as in an effort to kind of expand and enhance this particular goal from a literacy goal that we had in the past, we've expanded our definition of literacy to include digital literacy within this particular goal. We'll be looking for opportunities to support students in developing digital literacy skills across the content areas in a similar fashion to the social emotional skill development, where it's not discrete, it's maybe discretely learned, but then really these are skills that apply across content areas and that students really need to be fluent and fluid with, similar to the social emotional skills that we talked about earlier. So the more opportunities we offer them to practice and demonstrate these skills, the better off we feel that they'll be for academics and also their life outside of school. And then in the area of reading and writing, we're really excited to be embarking on a middle school collaborative effort to incorporate literacy workshop within that. So we've, over the last few years, focused heavily on the K-5 reading workshop and writing workshop implementation. Some similar work has happened at the high school where they've been working to incorporate choice reading and some of the workshop model there too, and we're just thrilled that this next step is to bring the middle school, all the middle schools together into this work so that we can really have a cohesive K-12 model for literacy that each sequentially builds upon the skills and also the instructional models that students are experiencing. And we feel that the work and growth we'll see from students as a result of that cohesion will be really promising. We're very excited about it. So just to close this out, we're really proud of this district improvement plan. As Superintendent Clenchey said, we really do feel it's the next step for us in helping us achieve or at least work toward our mission of educating all students to their fullest potential. We're really proud of the work that we've done and the collaboration that has gone into building this, including the collaboration with you all. We've appreciated your feedback along the way as well, so thank you.
Leah?
So I have a question on goal 3. I really commend this plan, it's amazing. I wonder on goal 3 it says teaching and learning will design and implement district-wide professional development and curriculum that promotes student-centered instruction. And so this year, am I right in understanding that this year you guys are building the capacity of the staff to understand what that means? And then in the following year, beyond that, you should be finding those things come through the classroom and students experiencing that K-12.
That's true, and we do this specifically in district-wide curriculum development time. So we have a curriculum review cycle which allows us to bring together teachers from specific content areas in very deliberate and facilitated curriculum development time, where we really work to, in even more depth, develop their capacity to kind of think through student-centered instruction and then build together as a district-wide team opportunities for students to participate in that kind of work. So we definitely, this is a long-term goal for us that we began several years ago and will be continuing to do until it's pervasive.
I think that one of the things I would want to mention too, because you mentioned this earlier, and I know Mr. Grady had mentioned this today around our administrative table when we were wrapping up our meeting this morning. The intent, when we worked on this, the intent was never that we would expect our teachers to implement all kinds of different things this year, because we really were trying to make sure that our staff felt very comfortable with the material before. However, you had already alluded that you're seeing things already happening in Luther Burbank, and Mr. Grady gave the example around the administrative table this morning that they just did some very intensive work on their PD day the other day, and already this morning they were implementing things. So even though that wasn't our intent, we're seeing the teachers take it and run with it right now. So that's very exciting. So it's kind of exceeding expectations right now that we had for in this specific area. So
I think a prime example of that too is with the new social studies standards at the middle school level. Our teachers are really working together in professional development, so that then you will see the fruits of their labor play out in the classroom. You know, we've joined forces with Primary Source, which is a fantastic, you probably as a classroom teacher. We've developed a regional partnership with them, so that regional partnership includes us teaming up with 6 other area districts to then collaborate district-wide and through other districts in the area to do that. But that's huge because it's such a huge change. The teachers need the time, they need the PD to really wrap their heads around that, and then ultimately what that civics component is going to look like in the district, but also significantly ties to the social emotional piece when kids are civically engaged. So that's how we're trying to really provide for teachers in this first year.
Yeah. And we know that's a hard shift, so, you know, I think we're trying to offer professional development wherever possible. Primary Source is coming in to work specifically with our 6th and 7th teachers across 3 days to model some of the student-centered work, and then with the expectation that they're also building it into the units that then they're going to develop together. So it's really exciting. And the framework shifts beyond social studies, science, math, ELA. They've all kind of facilitated this, so we've wanted it, and then it's supported by the frameworks as well. So we're really happy that that's kind of
and it's supported by this table.
And it's
the resources that we have to be
absolutely
able to do these kinds of things is fantastic, and it's a result of the collaboration and what you folks approve for our teachers and for our kiddos. Because I collaborate with other districts and they say, oh, you know, it's not something that we can do in our district. So, and I know our teachers know that because they all jump at the chance to be involved in PD when they can.
Yeah, I think it's so important for kids to be engaged in skill building as much as content knowledge is interesting and important. Skill building is what our students really need.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think it's because of that, those skills that help them generalize their learning to new experiences and new learning. It's not just about the content.
Other questions or comments? Mike?
This is obviously a really robust district improvement plan. I think it's ambitious, appropriately ambitious. I don't think overly ambitious. I think it's great. And I know, Brooke, you spoke to the fact that this is very much an anchoring document for the district, and that once it is in place, then school improvement plans can be developed from it. And I'm actually wondering about that. So are the school improvement plans and the district improvement plans synchronized so that once the administration and schools get a sense of what the district improvement plan is, at the same time a new school improvement or multiple new school improvement plans are then expected to result from it?
So I'm going to let both Joel and Laura speak to that. Joel, if you don't mind pushing up to the table, please, thanks. But let me just tee it up first. So I think the key that we need to keep in the back of our mind as we're thinking about this is that they're involved heavily in this process in the building. So they know right from the beginning, because it's actually coming from them, what those priorities are. So, you know, it's not a case of waiting until, you know, September 20, whatever, to say, oh, here it is now. They already know, and so the work has already started to be generated at that level, effective last year as they were starting. So with, maybe Joel and Laura, if you can speak to this.
So, as you know, and Dr. McCarthy knows, having, you know, worked at the school council level, you know, that work is pretty much an organic process from the ground up in terms of, you know, where we are headed as a school relative to where the district is headed. And so different schools are along different timelines in their school improvement plans. And yet, I think if you think back to our work together on the school council, we were talking about those ideas of academic rigor and social emotional and what that looks like at the school level. You know, I value the partnership. Superintendent Clenchey uses the word collaboration. Really, I just listen a lot to what Laura Friend says, and I think it is a healthy discussion in terms of where we want to go as a district, understanding where we currently are as a school, and, you know, what we do well and where we can be better.
So it seems like sometimes the school improvement plan actually leads the district improvement plan, and sometimes it's vice versa?
Leads, I
Precedes
think,
maybe? I don't know.
I think we have an idea of, you know, so we talk about the trajectory of these conversations. You know, where do we need to grow? And those conversations happen. Where do we need to help develop our teachers? And those conversations happen, and goals are generated from there. Where do we need to have our students end up? And so over that continuum of time, you know, it's a chicken or an egg kind of thing. Sometimes the school may say, yeah, this is the direction that we want to go, but we've probably had those conversations as a team first. But we also respect the fact that our school councils have an important role to play in terms of that development process. So it's a hand in glove.
Yeah. Great, thank you.
Laura, did you want to add anything?
I would just say, I think that's a really valid point. And it's a point that we're aware of at the school level, because while we have our own agendas and what's important to our community, which is really important to us, say in Lancaster or in Bolton, what's most important is that we're supporting the district vision so that we can move collectively together as an entire unit or team. So I think the chicken and the egg analogy is a really good one, and one that we're always mindful of. And we also know we're part of a larger context. We're not silos. And so that conversation and that collaboration is happening continuously. No decisions are made in isolation. We're calling our colleagues, we're calling teaching and learning and saying we're thinking about this. So we're all, you know, doing things a little bit differently, but we're all headed in the same direction. And we're committed to that.
You know, for example, the principals meet along with teaching and learning once a month, just for this kind of conversation. So, you know, the conversations are organic in nature, and I think are just, to your point, ongoing. We're always having this kind of rich conversation.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, based on what you've said, that speaks to the both the transparency and the authenticity of what's developed, and the dip and the school improvement plans. And so, you know, like you said, hand in glove, and that's. It was really a question that I didn't know the answer to, but it makes absolute sense. So thank you.
Any other, Mary?
And I liked, Martina, you used the word, and on this particular topic, of being reflective, that the district improvement plan is reflective of the school improvement plans, and from being, Mike and I working with Joel on school council, would see that too. And Joel would say, the district is going to do that too, so we might want to just go, you know, he was feeding those ideas too, we might just want to step back a little bit. But I just want to make some general comments about the district improvement plan, and say what a privilege it is to be working with all of you on this. Because when I think back to when I not first teaching, but when I was the director of character education and service learning in Hudson Public Schools, which was like, you know, around 2000 and 2001, and the whole district, we were all designated as schools of character. So many districts were so focused on pure academics, and social and emotional learning was considered soft skills. You know, well, that's really nice if you have time for it, but just make sure that we can do, you know, the English, the ELA, and the math. And so even social studies was being pushed a little bit away. Science stayed in there, but everything else wasn't. So to see a district improvement plan with such a strong emphasis on social and emotional learning, when that was my work for a long time, and I have to say the Hudson Public Schools and Dr. Sheldon Berman, Shelley, was way ahead of everybody else. And we did a lot of work in Hudson in regard to this. And I worked with Castle, and you know, we had a lot of grants, big grants. And so whether it was called character education or the other part of what I did, which was service learning, and that brings in social and emotional learning with academics, and so you have practice and theory moving together. So that's another, you know, way that we can move once the teachers are really comfortable with social and emotional learning, and they know, because if you get ahead of what the teachers are comfortable with, just as you said, it's just not gonna work. So it's just, I have to tell you, it's like being a grandmother, and I am a grandmother. But to have been around in the days when a lot of this was really poo-pooed, and the research wasn't there, now the research is there. But to see this and to think that this is what our district is moving, is working on, it is robust, as you said, it is ambitious, but it's the right way to go. So I really feel privileged and so proud of all of you.
Thank you. We appreciate that very much, Mary. Thank you.
So, this lays out the broad goals, and everyone is working in their area. What would be wonderful is when you come back in the spring to give us a progress report, to have very specific examples of what it looks like. So if I went into a high school classroom, whether it be math or whatever subject, what would be different because of this? And to get a snapshot from each of the schools, and representative of the different grade levels, so we can have a more, for me anyway, a more vivid picture of how this made a difference. What are you doing differently than perhaps you did a year ago, and what do you see the result is? Because that's part of it too. Not that everything is set in place in perpetuity, but on our journey, our year 1, year 2, wherever we are, this is where we are. This is what this is what we're doing, and this is where we're going next year. So as part of the report out, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that as we get closer to that time. But I agree with Mary in terms of being back in the day. But you said it all. I'm not repeating it, but I agree. But also for me, seeing how these district improvement plans have evolved in the time I've been on the committee, and really I haven't heard, and I know how hard the administrators are working, teachers, I have not heard any complaints about, we called it initiative fatigue. Oh, they got us doing this now, and now we got to do that. Nothing. There is so much positive energy and excitement, and it's just it's the vision that we all had, those of us in education, for what we should be doing, not just the academics, but just incorporating the different skills, so that you're not just learning stuff, you're learning things that you can apply elsewhere. So thank you all for your hard work, and thank you for your leadership, Brooke, and Todd, in bringing this forward.
I think too what you'll see, and I just want to put this out as a cautionary note again, is that remembering that this year is our year to focus on teachers, not implementing it into the classrooms. We're just seeing that through extension, really, that's ongoing. But it won't surprise me if we don't see some presentations throughout the course of the year, just like we did last year, with the literacy initiatives coming forward. I can see that happening this year too, where...
Well, teachers are, you teach them something, then they have to go do it in their classroom.
It's
so
exciting.
It'd be fun to hear about it.
Yeah,
It's good.
absolutely.
But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
folks.
appreciate it.
Okay. Okay. So the next item is I had spoken at the last meeting about doing something different with public comments. And one of our members made reference to a Superior Court decision in a case, Spalding v. Town of Natick School Committee. And it is likely that this decision will have implications for public participation at school committee meetings, policies, and not just here, but across the state. And before we do anything differently with our practice, I feel it's prudent to consult our attorney and see how MASC is being advised through the legal team that they work with. Once we have recommendations from them, the policy subcommittee will work on a revision to the current policy, and then it will be brought forward to the school committee for approval. So we are not going to move forward with our pilot, and this is why And I don't want to get into the particulars of this, but it is, you can find information about it, and you can look up the case, you can get it out of the newspaper, you can go to the legal firm's website, but also get the case, et cetera, through the court system, so, okay. Enough said. So now we'll move to the, I'm sorry, I didn't want to cut anybody off, but I don't want to belabor this either. Did anybody have any questions? Okay, so now we'll move to the business meeting.
We're gonna talk money, so we're gonna bring Pat Maroney up to talk about our year end. And I'm gonna kind of help her out along the way, just because I want to be able to help myself. I like to do that, so she'll start, and then I'll fill in some thoughts along the way too, of kind of where we're at.
I'll do the treasurer's reports first. Get some of them.
The treasurer's report's always an easy one to do.
So the treasurer has presented to me reports for the months of May, June, July, and August on the balances in our cash and investment accounts. As you can see, based on all 4 months, we have a pretty healthy balance in there, and we're doing pretty well, so I would say, anybody has any questions, I would like to answer them.
OPEB's doing okay in our little trust. I wonder what they're investing in. I might want to know. Seriously. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
It has gone up and down, though. I want to point that out, our OPEB, because we do keep pretty close eyes on that, and we have seen it go up and down, so.
Right, so July was 442, and yes, go ahead.
Was there a deposit into the OPEB?
Yes, on July 1st, as
Oh,
part of
right.
the budget
Okay.
process.
All right, never
I
mind.
was gonna say, I think that's what.
Yeah.
That explains a lot.
That explains a lot. Does anybody else have any questions about anything there? Okay. So next, I'm just going to briefly go over the results of operations. And I'll just give you a quick overview of where we landed in regards to expenditures, year-end expenditure report.
There it is.
And mind you, this is this hasn't been audited yet, so this is basically before the auditors have had a chance to look at it. So as you can see, we've ended the year with $819,650 balance. And you can see, based on the different departments and categories within our budget, what departments have surpluses or deficits. And as you can see, the insurance and benefits line is primarily the reason for why we have such a surplus in our budget for this year.
Sorry, can you say that one more time? I know that was important. I just didn't catch it.
Well, the insurance and benefits line has a surplus, and there's a reason for that too. During our budget process, we don't always know where we're gonna land as far as our health insurance goes, because we don't have our new rates. So, and at that point, last year, we met with the unions and went over a change in the plans to bring forth a more affordable plan. And in the past, what I've had is a lot of people were jumping onto our plan, so I always planned for that. You know, whether, I don't know whether things change in their families or whatever, but we had a trend upward, and I had been successful in planning for that in the past. This year, we made some changes to the program that saved us some money. In addition to the health insurance and the dental insurance, we had some money that was basically because of rate changes. Also, we had some savings in the workers' comp, and then a couple of other areas of our insurances, we saved a little bit of money. So it was a good year as far as insurance and benefits goes.
Can I just go back for one? This is probably more to probably Kathy, and I'm not sure, Elaine and Mike, if you remember this, but we had problems with workers' comp couple of years ago when I
Yes,
first came
yeah.
in, you'll recall that. And so
Right.
we've done a lot of work in that area, and I think that this year we felt the benefit of that. So I want to be cautious when you take a look at that number, but I want you to know that part of that is because of the good work that's been done in our offices and in HR.
Right, and Maya, who is our insurance carrier, they are also very instrumental in helping us to make sure that we're keeping up with all of those workers' comp related issues and making sure that the custodians and other workers in the district are in compliance.
Could you speak briefly to explain the other surpluses in special ed, the high school and
Sure.
center school?
Special ed, even though we had a significant increase in legal costs, and we had some additional transportation costs, we had some surplus in our out-of-district tuitions. We had a lot of kids that came back into the district and are participating in our programs as opposed to paying a hefty tuition bill. So that would be the number one reason why we would have surplus in sped. The other one you said was what?
The high school and then center school.
High school, in the admin salary
Remember the
line.
admin salary, remember we
That's right,
changed,
okay.
and that's why you've got a big chunk of money there, was because that money was initially at the high school, but then we moved him over. You recall, we moved an administrator over to Florence Sawyer,
Yes.
and so that's why you see a hole in one area and a surplus in the other, was because of that particular shift. So there's basically a whole admin salary in there as well as other things, but, and I think it for all of the buildings too, you'll recall too that, you know, with teachers shifting and whatnot and hiring and everything, you're always gonna see
Oh,
those
okay,
shifts.
you're right.
The other thing to keep in mind too, remember that, is this the first year, Pat, or the second year that we've left everything without transfers at the end?
Yes, this is, I think it's the second year.
This is the second year. You'll recall that that was based on the forensic auditor's
That's right.
advisement,
Yep,
right?
Yep.
And
So we see.
so you've seen this
real
all the way
picture.
along.
Yep,
You've
okay.
seen the
Makes
real
sense.
picture. What she's showing you here
Mhm.
is basically what you've seen every month as we've gone along. So there's really almost very little change on the one that you're seeing today versus the one that you probably saw the month like in June, because we
Sure.
were already projecting, we knew where this was gonna be at. But I think it's really important because you'll recall that previously, all of those accounts were zeroed out, so you didn't know, right, what was overspent or underspent or whatever. And the problem with leaving it like this is you say, well, wait a minute, well, that doesn't make sense. Or, whereas we're saying, yeah, but that's the reality of how our budgets work.
Right, but when
know?
you explain it, it's understandable.
Oh, exactly.
You need to
Yeah.
know the context, so, and that's.
No, I totally
yes.
agree with you. I totally agree. I prefer this, even though there's a lot more explaining along the way, but it's so transparent because you say,
That's the main.
yeah, it hasn't been zeroed out. It's exactly what it is.
Okay. Mike, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. You partially answered that, but and I understand that we've been seeing this tracking all the way. But forgive my my memory loss on this. But you said that the change at the high school as compared to Florence Sawyer was because of, or in general because of staffing changes.
Right.
So if you look at those two numbers, there's still, you know, around 200K difference, right? So Florence Sawyer was down 40, Neshoba High School is up to 50. So where are the other staffing changes that?
Luther Burbank.
So okay, so
You
Luther Burbank
remember
is
that
down.
how that trio, the
Yep.
trio of administrators moved around?
Yeah, yeah,
That's what it
okay.
is.
Okay.
Good
Yeah,
catch
so with
on that,
Luther
yeah.
Burbank, all right, we're getting much
Yeah.
closer. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So when we get into budgeting season for this coming year, with the insurance and benefits, is this something that you need to keep the budget at whatever it is plus some for next year, or do we think that we can lower the budgeted amount for insurance and benefits
We
because we
should be able
expect
to
it?
lower it.
Okay.
Hopefully, I haven't spoken with the insurance people yet. It's really early.
It's really too
They
early.
really
Yeah.
couldn't give us any answers at this point. And all of our rates are based on our experience,
Okay.
which is, you know, how many sick people we have in the district, basically. I would expect it's going to be lower, which is good.
Okay.
So we'll see that continue on. But again, you know, it's all based on the rates.
Yeah, and I would point out too, it's, you're not suggesting this, and so I'm not trying to suggest anything other than the fact that we generally get an idea from them before we even go to the budget. See, like before we even bring it to you, like at that meeting in January, we've already talked to them, so we have a flavor of where we think they're headed. So when we put the numbers in there, we're confident that it's pretty close, because it's kind of what they've told us, but we don't really know until actually just about after you've accepted the budget and then the numbers come in. So, I mean, we go with basically what they tell us, what they think the flavor is, and because you don't, I mean, we could have as easily gone the other way on this. The other, you know, and not had, or lost a bunch of money, or, you know. The other thing I want to point out that I think is so important for you to remember on all of this, and I know I've said it before, but I want to say it again. We had to borrow $800,000 last year from E&D. And I desperately need this $800,000 to go back into E&D so that I can withdraw it again for next, like this current year, because we've got $750,000 ready to pull out of E&D to make this year's budget work. This, I don't want to say it was planned, but we knew as we saw it going throughout the course of the year that this is probably where we were going to land, and we knew that we needed that money to go back into E&D. So this is not like this particular set of funds is something that we can just do whatever with. We can't, it has to go back in because we need to re-borrow it this year. And you recall that that's past history that we're trying desperately to get off that hamster wheel with, but we're just not there yet.
Other questions? Okay.
And so I'll move on to the revenue report too. That's also, this year, surprisingly enough, in June it came to light that
Late June.
We received some additional funds in regional transportation that were unexpected. And we also received some Medicaid revenue that was unanticipated. Well, it was anticipated, but not to the degree that it was. So, I mean, on this report, it looks like it's a negative, but in the accounting world, that's how it's presented. This particular report is generated right from our accounting system. So that $298,980 represents additional funds that we received for regional transportation. And then the Medicaid revenue, we received an additional $112,825. We were lucky enough to also receive some additional funding from Chapter 70, a little bit more than I had expected. Charter school revenue went up a little bit. Our earnings on investments were probably the best than they've been in quite a few years. Our treasurer has been very diligent in keeping the money in the places where it's making money. So that's a true reflection of her work in regards to that. So I'd like to bring up the PowerPoint presentation. And does anybody have any questions about any of these revenue numbers?
I just have a comment or two I want to make. First of all, the $112,000 in Medicaid, what's important to know is that's reimbursement money. Okay, so basically money has been spent to bring that money back in. So I want to point that out. And this was a very atypical year. We had some situations that demanded far greater expenses than we have had to put out certainly in my time here. And so what you're seeing there it's an anomaly. It probably won't ever happen again that you've got that kind of money that comes in on reimbursement. So that's not a norm at all. And the Chapter 70, I just want to say, go back to again, our budget season versus, we go in with, remember, basically the house numbers, remember in January, but we don't know where it's going to land, and we don't generally know where it's going to land until July or August, like once everybody's out of school, and, you know, conference committee comes back and says, okay, well, this is what you're getting. So again, that could as easily have gone the other way as opposed to the positive that it ended up. It was just a fluke of a year for us, to be honest with you.
Leah?
Well, are you gonna now show us what we're gonna do with the
We're gonna talk about
Yeah,
that, we're gonna talk about that.
Okay.
We're going to talk about that, and we're also going to talk about a request I have in regards to middle school athletic revolving accounts. So this is how we landed for the end of fiscal year 19. We had a revenue surplus of $639,726 and an expenditure surplus of $819,650.
So those are the two sheets that we just looked at, right? So again, I just want to say, so the operations, that's your budget. And then the revenue was like the extra over here that we weren't counting on.
So, and here they are in total, basically 1.4 million.
But keep in mind that 800,000 needs to go back in so that we can take it out again this year.
So, looking at that 1.4, again, we want to return to E&D the 800,000 that we took out. So we would subtract 800,000 from that 1.4. And then the surplus of the regional transportation, there are regulations that allow us to put that into a transportation revolving account to cover any excess transportation costs that we may have in the following year.
This current year,
This
right
year that
now.
we're in right now. And I put something up on the website too. There's a letter that's copied right off the state website that explains exactly what that is. And we voted this, to do this a couple of years ago, so we're already cleared in that respect.
So in essence, that 298,980 that came in needs to stay in regional transportation. So that has to go back over to the revolving transportation account.
Okay.
Because we may be at a loss next year, we may need this money.
So that leaves us with an additional E&D of $360,396. And again, I said this isn't audited, so, but it will be around that number. So tonight, I guess we need to talk about next steps. What do we want to do with that number? With that money that's left in?
And I think we've got, a couple of options that we would want to put on the table for you to consider tonight. I don't think we need to necessarily make a decision tonight, so I don't think we're feeling that. But I mean, there's a couple things that we can look at, and I'm going to suggest one or two, and then, certainly you may well have some. I mean, there's going to be some folks that say, well, should some of that go into OPEB? Well, maybe some should, maybe none of it should, I don't know. You'll recall that OPEB is the other post-employment benefits for the retirees, right? And so you'll recall that the school district basically has a liability of $40+ million in that area, and we've only got a couple $100,000 in the bank account.
$400,000, come on.
Well, we do, but I mean, it's nowhere near the 40 million. But I mean, at the other side of it, I know philosophically, I know we've had this discussion. We're probably never going to see it in this lifetime. I mean, honestly, I don't know if we'll ever get to an OPEB number of $40 million sitting in a bank account somewhere for the Neshoba Regional District. So that's out there, and I'm not being negative at all. I'm just saying what's realistic here. So there's that piece. The other piece is we've got this hamster wheel of borrowing from E&D every year to make the budget work. I mean, do we want a portion of that to go against that so that maybe we don't have to borrow every year the $750,000 or the $800,000? Maybe this is the year to say, well, maybe we take a little bit of that so it's not always that high, and help us to get down to maybe we're someplace where it's only $100,000 or $200,000. That's an option. The other option is, where do we sit with free full day K? Now, we've got $300,000 in essence already earmarked for free full day K. You know that we need between $500,000 and $600,000 for that gap year, and you'll recall that gap year is the year where we don't get any money at all from parents or the state to help support that, which is why we have to have that money in the bank to be able to pay for staff, et cetera, et cetera. So we know, and we've been very open and honest and transparent about the need for that $500,000 to $600,000 monetary earmark in some form or another in order to start free full day K. Now, from my lens, I think we've already passed the philosophical discussion about that. So, and I certainly wouldn't want to speak for the committee, but I'll speak for myself. I feel that we're already past that point right now. So for me, it's a fiscal question now. Okay, so I feel that we want to start this. I would like to see it started. when can we start it? And you'll recall that I said initially, you know what, I didn't think we could do it in the 2020-2021 year. Could we do it in the 21-22 year? Then when this happened, you know, I said to Pat, do we look at the possibility of starting that 1 year sooner? Do we say, you know what, maybe we take part of this money and put it towards that free full day K, and we say, can we start it in a year's time from now? Maybe we can. So I think that we've got a number of options from our perspective fiscally with regards to the free full day K. Every year that we put it off, we lose money from the state, and it eats a bigger hole in our bank accounts as such, because we've never charged the cost that kindergarten costs us. So we lose money in that program every single year, and we're not getting the appropriate state money in. So at some point in time, there's a fiscal question there that I know that the previous school committees had conversation about, but this school committee hasn't. And so I think that that's something that we might want to think about, you know. I'm not suggesting that we lean any way or another, and you may say, well, no, you know, the other thing is, we don't have in our E&D what the state thinks we should have in E&D, which is what, 5% I think of our 5% of our budget.
Well, 5% is our limitation.
Right, limitation, but we're nowhere near that in our E&D, and so maybe that money should just go towards that. I think this is a one-time shot deal, and I would encourage that you look at it from that lens. You know, like, what do we do with a one-time shot amount of money that we happen to have in front of us right now? So I just put those out as ideas that we've certainly had lots of discussion on. I just don't know where the committee members would fall right now in terms of their thinking. And again, we're just bringing this to you tonight, so we're not looking for any hard and fast decisions.
Does anybody want to weigh in? Neil?
I wonder if you would have the intention to bring to us a more detailed option chart where you would say, this is how much we lose on kindergarten each year.
We've done that.
Okay.
Yeah, we've already done that. We did that last year.
How much is the loss? In the red, as it were.
Ballpark. At one point, I think 4 years ago, between pre-K and full day K, it was about $400,000.
It was $400,000,
and that's when we decided to raise tuition.
Right.
And it was very upsetting to people. But a $400,000 red entry in the ledger was very upsetting to me, because we were subsidizing something that should have been cost recovery.
Do we know what it is post
Well, this
tuition
is,
bump?
do we know what, right,
like what it is right now?
What the
And without
like,
the
is it-
pre-K.
Yeah.
yeah, what the K is?
Well,
What's our liability for K that the tuition doesn't cover?
Probably about $175,000.
I was gonna say, I think it's just under 200,000, it would be my guess, but we can go back and take
Right.
another look at it, but
Right.
that's probably
But
what we
it's
have to
still,
put in
it's
there.
still, the tuition doesn't cover the cost.
Right.
Full day K and other districts is cost recovery, ours is not,
Right.
so.
Right, it was, I believe that the number that I got from the state was about 520,000 around there, and we were losing 495, so that little piece of money, and that will only grow.
Other
That
thoughts?
gap will grow.
Elaine?
As teacher salaries increase.
Right.
I think what I would like to see is a chart of like balances in the different accounts, so probably kindergarten, OPEB, I guess E&D as well, and then like what we've budgeted the last couple of years, like what we've been able to include in the budget, and then what might be sitting in a stabilization fund or something else there. Just to know like what we've done recently and what we think we can do on a regular basis moving forward.
I'm not sure, I think I know what you're asking for, but I think we've got some of those numbers like at the tip of our tongue. I mean, really.
Yeah, I'm just like, I'm kind of thinking like, oh right, OPEB, didn't we put, was it 50 in the budget and then we added 100,000 after? I'm just sort of trying to remember the
I think we've
details
got
of what
that.
we've done.
There, I put up a sheet
Yeah, I
on
think we've got something
the
here tonight.
stabilization funds and what the balances are.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what was in the, no, it's not in that document. What was in the attachment for the meeting tonight was a little confusing to me, because I was like, wait, I don't think that's what we voted, and I think there was some housekeeping or administrative details that were.
So where in the meeting materials, Pat, would that be, or is it
It's
someplace else?
OPEB and stabilization funds.
Report, okay.
It looks like this. sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Right.
So right now, the balance in OPEB is $325,000. We have $50,000 in the high school turf and track stabilization fund.
Mhm.
We have $300,000 in the full-day K stabilization.
Well, earmarked for it.
Earmarked
for it, yeah.
yes.
Because you'll recall at the very end, this kind of gets back, I think, Elaine, to what you were thinking, that 100,000
Mhm.
was asked for us to put it in the budget, you'll recall, that at the very tail end of that budget process. You asked us to put the 100,000 in, and so that 100,000 has been able to go straight, directly into the stabilization fund for the free full-day K.
Right.
All right, I don't know, maybe I read this wrong, because I definitely looked at this before the meeting and was like, oh no, this doesn't jive with my recollection of what we did, but now I'm looking at it and saying, yeah, that's exactly what we did.
Yeah.
So, sorry, my mistake.
Okay, Mike?
I think I agree that this is probably a lengthier discussion. But just if you could indulge me for a moment, what is the expected cost of the
Track?
the turf? Yeah.
Probably around the 300, a little
Okay,
over
that's-
300,000
okay.
mark.
So that's what I thought. So,
And I just want to say to you, this is a report as of the end of June. So this doesn't even take into account what this fiscal year 20, what we have allocated. And if you look below, it says, so whatever this number is in the box, add the next number now below it
Right.
to it. So we're, 425,000 in OPEB.
right.
We're 100,000 in the turf, and
Yeah.
we're 100,000 in the full day K with,
The
The 200.
additional 200,000 that's been earmarked
Right.
for it.
Right. So, the first thing I thought of was, as a percentage, we are about 33% of the way towards funding what we expect the turf to cost. Is that right?
Mhm.
And then we're about 50% towards full day K.
Right.
And then if we look at OPEB, with the additional 100,000 from FY 21, we are just at 1% of our liability. And that seems very, very deep to me. And again, I understand, I have more things that I would say to this to sort of highlight where I'm coming from, but those differences in numbers to me seem very, very stark and worrisome. So I just thought that I would kind of add that perspective.
Okay, Jeff?
Oh, I just had a quick question. So if I understand the conversation correctly, I mean, the two areas that you're looking at for possible allocation of these funds would be either full-day kindergarten or E&D. And I'm curious from the perspective of our sending communities, if there's been any feedback in that regard as to where our communities would like to see those funds allocated.
Well, I think every community would be different, to be honest with you. I think that, and even within your communities, I think within your communities would see it very differently. And I think that your younger parents, for example, would want that free full day K. If I was a betting woman, whereas folks maybe a little bit that older, more seasoned and understand OPEB would say, hey, you should really be putting some more money into OPEB. I think it's really you'd find that it would vary greatly. Which is why I guess I kind of look at it a little bit differently. But that's the strength about coming to this table, right? We're all gonna see things differently. And so we have to find where that balance is. But there's a piece of me that looks at the free full day K and says, okay, when do we balance that piece out and maximize getting the funds that I feel that we're owed from the state into the coffers rather than the parents, so that's more of I guess maybe that's a philosophical question as well as a management question,
Mary?
So just to continue on that point, as we look at the three areas, and wouldn't it be great if we had enough money to put into each of them, but there's only one area that will actually give us revenue back. There's only one,
That's right.
and that's the full day kindergarten.
Yeah.
And I am very definitely, strongly in favor doing this while we can, because we don't know what the future is gonna be. There will be more costs. And I like what you said, Brooke, about the fact that the discussions about it really have landed on the fact that 98% of public schools, in Massachusetts have full day free K, and that we know for students that to go full day is so beneficial. It starts their whole education. And we know that our parents, and I haven't, well, I've heard from two, from maybe not all 3 towns, but 2 towns, how important this is, especially to young families. So this might be the only time to do this.
And that's,
So-
Pat and I were saying the same thing, yeah.
The money's gonna come back. When you're talking about return, on the output of, we're gonna get money back. And we're gonna be then getting, the Chapter 70 money. Now these kindergartners will be in full SED. They equal a 12th grader.
That's right.
We're gonna get the money back. So, that's what I think.
Lane?
The thing I keep thinking about the kindergarten fund is that we put this money into the savings account and it's just sort of sitting there, waiting to be used for something very specific. Like, I guess you could consider the turf stabilization fund similarly. So for right now, we took $300,000 that we could have put somewhere else, and we're saying, okay, we're gonna use this for kindergarten. So it's just sitting there. So the longer it takes us to finish that fund, and I totally understand why we need to be saving for it, but the longer it takes to finish it, the longer that money is not being put to use to get the revenue back and also to educate the kids. It's just kind of, to me, it feels like it's just sitting there in limbo, and that, we're not using it in the regular budget, we're not using it in some other fund, it's just sitting there. So I personally, I kind of feel like I just want to get it done. It's like paying off a credit card bill. Get it done, move on, and then start rolling that money into something else moving forward.
Leah,
That's
did you
kinda where I
have
am.
a comment?
Well, I would just echo what they were saying. I mean, spending it for the full day kindergarten, even a parent in any one of our towns that isn't going to benefit from this personally, can recognize that we're going to save $175,000
Yeah, and that's just an estimate.
estimated.
I'll crunch some numbers and give you
Even
some.
if we only saved
numbers.
$100,000, that's a good return on your investment. You're not going to get 33% on money anywhere. So,
And I think to Pat's point too, and she was saying this, and this kind of ties in with Elaine's thinking too, the longer we sit and the more expensive it will become, which is, as you'll recall, that's why we said we know that we're gonna need between $500 and $600. And DESE said to us, yeah, the longer it plays out, the more expensive it's gonna be. So we knew that if we went beyond the time frame that we had suggested, that 600,000, it may be more in a couple of years. So it's, in some ways, it feels like short-term pain for gain. I know that not everybody, Joe goes back to your point, I know that not everybody is going to feel the same way about this. And I'm sure that there'll be other people that say, well, why didn't you put that all into E&D or all into OPEB or all, but I agree with Mary, because I there's a part of me that says there's instant return on this. They're really, in terms of children resource, in terms of children's education, in terms of money coming in from the state, in terms of, it would clean up now that 300,000 that's sitting there. And, the benefit though, I would look at this, if this is the road that you go down, I'm incredibly grateful that we did what we did with that 300,000, so that, or we wouldn't be in the position we're sitting in tonight to consider this. So that 300,000 is really what puts us in the position to say we can consider doing this.
So I understand the OPEB liability, but I also don't imagine, as Brooke said, in our lifetime or in any lifetime, a school district, a public school district, getting to that magic number. Now, I think we make a good faith effort, and we have. 4 years ago, our OPEB balance was zero. And then we put it in a trust, so we've acted responsibly. And I think that that's sort of, from my point of view, the theme of the work of administration is fiscal responsibility. We engaged MASBO, the Massachusetts School Business Officers.
Officials, yep.
Thing. And we had a forensic audit. We've become very efficient and responsible because there was a feeling years ago that we should just plop that $5,000, $6,000, $100,000 into the budget, hardwire it in, go for it. But no, we knew the towns, because once it's in there, it's in, and you can't pull it out. So we're halfway there. And I'm thinking in terms of, well, the money for sure. It bothers me to subsidize, have a benefit for some families that doesn't exist for other families by subsidizing. And we have brought the subsidy down, but it's still a lot of money. And there is such a feeling, I mean, this was support among the committee for the last few years, and we've certainly heard from parents in the community that this is something that they have wanted. It would enhance an educational program in the school. I know that most kids do it, but for those parents that don't, and cost may be prohibitive, we're improving education and programming in this district by implementing it. And when we made this decision 2 or 3 years ago to start chipping away at it, we deliberately did not say, oh, in 2 years, in 3 years. I mean,
That's
at
right,
one
we
point
didn't
somebody
know.
was saying 5 years.
Yeah.
But if we can do this, and we don't have to decide tonight, but if we can do this, there'll still be some money left over to put wherever we want it. But I think that this is an opportunity, and we can take advantage of it, and hopefully have full day K next school year. Get that period of time that we have to pay over it. But Mary has, listed all the salient points in terms of payment, and then you're really not, in my mind, you're not spending it, you're investing it, because you're gonna get a return, and it'll keep on returning. So, Leah.
Logistically, you think that if we were to go down this road, you could get the programming up and running?
Oh, yes. In fact, we had the discussion today earlier with our administrative team, because you'll recall that one of the things that we took a look at, and again, I feel bad because I feel like you're operating from a deficit, and I apologize for this. If you don't understand something, please ask me, because it means that I just think that you know and you don't know. So just please ask me the questions. We laid out numbers last year that showed all of our populations, our student populations, and we did comparisons on trends, and so to look at patterns, because one of our concerns at that, this is going back 2 years ago when we started really talking about this, is, well, if we do this, so for example, if we do this next year, will we suddenly have, 40 new kids come into every program, and we have to, build classrooms and add teachers and this kind of thing? And what we saw, Leah, over and I don't even know if we can even find that number, that sheet, there was a matrix that we'd made up, is you take a look across on a diagonal going from K to 1, sometimes it was -1, sometimes it was +1, sometimes it was +3 or 4. And so when we had a discussion again around the table today, except for those odd years where all of a sudden you just get a real, glitch of students come in at that particular grade level, as a rule, that doesn't happen very often.
Mm-hmm.
Might happen every 7 years or something like that. But, what we said again around the table this morning, it might be 3 or 4 kids, and that's all it is.
But not another
So-
teacher or?
No, it's not, and so we feel strongly right now that we can do this, and we're ready for it. We feel that as a district, we're ready for it.
Can I,
Great question.
without objection, move the agenda, because I think everybody's had a chance. We're not deciding tonight, but I've heard members of the committee ask for some tables, some data, so that we can look at the various options that we have. And so we can schedule that for an upcoming,
We'll pull some different things together, just FYIs.
Okay.
Type things. And I think too, we'll put those numbers up again, Leah, so that you can see what we were looking at last year.
okay.
But,
So-
question?
Yes.
When might we?
I would like to bring this forward again next meeting, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll
Put that on the
I
agenda.
can see that Leah's already adding it to the
Okay.
agenda.
All right, because we have a few more, we have a few more items to get to, Pat.
We have one more.
On that, all right, and then we,
Not on this, I'm done with the finance part of it.
okay, we have committee reports, go ahead. But so the next thing is,
The athletic director has requested that the 3 middle school athletic user fee accounts be combined into one middle school user fee revolving account. And what are they used for? The middle school athletic activities such as basketball, baseball, softball, track, and cross-country. That's what the funds are used for, and they're funded by a $55 participant fee per sport. And it covers all the costs of officials, uniforms, supplies, equipment, and transportation.
So,
wait, Pat's not done yet, excuse me, go ahead.
And the advantages of moving them into one, it simplifies the budget process as far as transparency. It streamlines payment processes, so we don't have to split them up between each school account. It's, the athletic director spends a lot of time doing that. She could be doing some other things. And it aligns offerings between the 3 middle schools, and it increases participation. And increased participation, I think, is important because our middle schools are the feeders of our high school athletic programs. And to have good, strong programs that are equal across all 3 towns, I think is really important. I'm not saying that they're not equal right now, but over the past, how many years, 10, 15 years, there are irregular balances in each of the 3 accounts because money was spent out of one and not out of the other or whatever. So this is just an effort, just put it into one and then spend it accordingly. I mean, for the most part, all of the programs offered are equal. There are not every community has all the same because some sports don't take off as well in one community as they might in another, but they are all offered. And I just think it's a better way, and it aids to the transparency of the athletic budget.
Mike?
I'm almost certain of the answer. I just wanted to make sure because coming into this, I looked at this and it was all part of the same slideshow. And so I was under the impression that the proposal to combine these 3 was an alternative avenue to put those excess funds. This is not what you're getting
It's got
at.
nothing to do with it.
No,
Okay.
it has nothing to do with that.
Just confused
Yeah.
because it was all part of the same slideshow. It said next steps, and then the next slide was like, let's combine all these funds. So, okay, thank you.
Okay, other questions or comments for Pat, Elaine?
So I understand that the advantages of simplifying the budget process and streamlining payment processes make sense to me. Why would an accounting change increase participation?
Well, it's not increasing participation. I think it can increase the offerings. Help me out, Brooke, here.
Yeah.
How do I put this?
Yeah, I think you almost really need Tanya here, to be honest. Like, that's why I'm
Right.
sitting here thinking,
She was
you
unable
know,
to be here
she wasn't
tonight.
able to be here tonight, but I think she could explain why she sees
So,
that as a potential
Could
for
we have her here at the next meeting?
Absolutely, I
and
think
vote
that
at
we
that
could, yeah.
point? That would be helpful.
And I think she could probably better answer that. It's a great question, and I think that she has a way that she was thinking about that she could far better articulate than either Pat or I. So why don't we hold this till next,
And
our next
if
meeting.
she can't be here on the 9th, see if she can be here on the 23rd?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, we'll work with your schedule.
Thank you.
She's a busy girl.
Yes, she is. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Pat.
Thank you, Pat. Okay, moving on to the subcommittee reports. What are those children doing up so late?
I hope they have bugs.
I hope they're bug sprayed, yes.
I was just thinking how much I appreciate hearing the laughter. I love laughter.
Okay, we have no report from budget warrant, personnel, Mike?
Personnel met last week for the second time in September. Superintendent Clenchey offered the committee a revision of her goals, and we plan on meeting a final time on, I believe, October 2nd, where presumably we'll be ready to make a recommendation to the school committee.
Very good, thank you. Leah, policy?
The policy subcommittee met today, and we are continuing that ongoing process of making the Neshoba Public Schools policies in line with and similar to other districts, according to Mass General Law and other restrictions and requirements. So we hope to be bringing to you the final policies over the course of the next 5 meetings. We'll get those to you all in advance so you can review the changes and then bring questions to us. And if there are no questions, we can just approve them in form.
Yes.
I think that's about it.
Yeah, our ultimate goal is to have them be part of the MASC online policy manual thing. And this has been a goal for 4 years.
Yes. Yeah.
It'll just make, anyone who's going to look for policy on our website has been frustrated, to say the least, and this will help. So that's our ultimate goal. We're looking at being able to turn our policy manual over to MASC by the first of the year. Dorothy Presser informs me it'll take about 2 months to get them onto the system, and they have a person whose job it is to read through every single one that comes from us to make sure that they're accurate and that there is grammatically correct, and that everything, punctuation, grammar. So Mary, you won't have to do it.
I can't help it.
I know, I told him, but you. So, okay, thank you, Leah. Okay, consent agenda. Do you want to make a motion
Sure.
about the consent agenda?
I will move to approve the September 25th, 2019 consent agenda, including the meeting minutes of September 9th, 2019, and the warrants of September 27th, 2019.
Can I have a second?
Second?
Leah? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Meeting of September 9th or September 11th?
Oh, that would be September 11th.
Was the 11th? Yes, thank you, Mike. Okay, so we have a second? All those in favor? Opposed? Okay. So items to be considered for next or future agendas. I will hop to planning calendar. So our parking lot is the regional agreement and school committee membership, school start time, special education update. The calendar committee is going to be convening in December, is that correct? And we told folks, because of a change to the professional development days, that we would evaluate how that has gone over, and so that has got to be, I don't know how, what's
I was
it
gonna
look
say,
like?
you're gonna have to really think about that, because I think we will only have had 1, 2 professional development days by the December timeframe when they start to look at it.
Well, it was something the community was told that they asked for,
Oh, no,
so-
and you heard Todd say tonight that they were collecting data, but
Okay.
I just wanna bring
We're
up that
definitely
it's only-
collecting data,
Yes.
specific
It's just
data.
that
It will just be
be
two,
for 2
there
meetings,
will
that's
just
all.
have been 2.
Okay, all
Out
right,
of
but
the 4.
I don't want that to get lost. The MCAS presentation, has that been scheduled? Do we know
We generally do that, I
approximately when it's
believe
gonna be?
November, I think, is when we generally do that. Is that right,
Yeah,
Todd?
we just have the one meeting
Okay.
in November, but we could do it.
Can you do it sooner?
Well, I'm just looking at November right now.
November, we only have one meeting,
Right.
so,
I'm just looking at one item there,
Yeah.
but we could do it on that
Okay.
meeting in November?
sure. Then, the next meeting is October 9th. Steve and Mike will not be with us for that meeting, and Mike is on the Personnel Subcommittee with Elaine, and should we bring forward, if PSC has the recommendation to approve the plan? Do you just
I
want?
don't see why not. I mean,
I just want to check.
yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay, I just wanted to double check on that. Any other things for future? Leah?
I wondered if I could just ask, around the special education update, would it be possible to, I had some constituents request or inquire around program descriptions.
That'll be part of it.
They will have that?
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? All of the substantially separate programs
Yes.
and.
Yes, that's part of the.
That's what she normally
Yeah.
brings that forward, she's got brochures for most of them and
Oh,
stuff.
she already does?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was under the impression they didn't exist.
No, I believe that was done last year.
Yeah.
Okay, and could we also, when that comes forward, could we also, you guys are probably going to do this, but make sure that there is kind of measurable or like explanations as to how the objectives were met?
Yes, that's the update based on last year. We got some
Okay.
feedback. And I've had a conversation with Brooke and with Joan, and talking about how the programs are evaluated, if you will, as part of the update.
I see.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay, other things for the agenda? Did we check all the boxes? Do you have
Everything
any-
on my list.
Everything, all right, and we're good. Okay,
Just don't forget to sign the warrants.
okay. Anything else for future agendas? Okay, and for the next agenda, October 9th, the goals, we have the guidance update,
And we have items from tonight. that we're gonna-
items from tonight.
Right.
Okay. All right, so, can we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, second?
Second?
Okay, Leah, all in favor? Okay, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks
Good
for
night.
the thoughtful conversation and discussion. Appreciate it.